fed up with blocking streets, apparently, and occupying college campus buildings. Black Lives Matter activists in California have a new tactic. One of the officers involved in a shooting death of Stephon Clark in Sacramento, California, was recently married. But on his wedding day, he had to confront invading activists.
Parents, I just wonder if you started planning your wedding before you killed Stephon Clark or after, and how you've been sleeping since March 18th. And I know this is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. He will not have that opportunity.
Can you get out of here?
Ever.
Hey guys, can you get out?
So we came here to drink wine and also just ask you how you're sleeping.
All righty. Robert Patillo is a civil rights attorney. He joins us now. Robert, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Tammy.
Now, look, for most of us who've seen that video, we understand the social argument about the need for, a lot of people talk about prison reform, but there needs to be justice reform. We know that there are problems culturally that we have to deal with. This, though, transcends a line in that we wonder, what is it really going to accomplish? What is your point of view on this? Because this just seems, not only is it not really going to accomplish anything on the issues that we're facing, but it really is a provocative dynamic that changes this into such a personal framework that people are going to turn away from what the real answers could be. What do you say to that?
Well, you know, Langston Hughes once asked the question, what happens to a dream deferred? And this is what happens when legislation is not created that will address the needs of people. For over a decade, people have been arguing and fighting and marching for the idea of comprehensive criminal justice reform in America. When it was hands up, don't shoot, conservatives had an issue with it. When it was taking a knee, conservatives had an issue with it. When it was I can't breathe, conservatives had an issue with it. What exactly is the protest that these individuals want people to have that will get them motivated on the issue of criminal justice reform?
You know,
if we want the protests to stop, we need to have an actual congressional leadership.
You know, the White House, Ivanka Trump and the president have both talked about the need for prison reform or justice reform. That's a discussion. Many black leaders and pastors have visited the president in the White House, and they get attacked for talking with the president about policy and about moving forward with the issues. Would you have a problem? Would you go and meet with the president? Do you have a problem with black activists and people, at least within the black community, who are leadership, meeting with the president to deal with these issues directly instead of invading a private citizen's wedding? Don't you think one would be more productive than the other?
And absolutely, I agree with you completely. I have applauded, I think I said on Twitter earlier, I applaud the pastors for meeting with President Trump. I meet with the president all day, any day on this issue. Frederick Douglass met with Andrew Johnson in 1866, a former slaveholder, to work out issues. The only way you make progress is by meeting, talking, and pushing through legislation. The meeting with the pastors and the president to push the First Step Act, it was absolutely necessary. We need Senator Grassley to stop delaying the bill, get it out of the Judiciary Committee.
This is a conversation.
We need less talk and more action.
You're a civil rights attorney. This is a conversation. This is about getting things done. But Americans see on television this kind of action of people trying to ruin, as they mentioned, they knew. It's like, let's ruin this guy's happiest day in his life. You realize that you're not winning people. This is not a way to win friends and influence people, that this conversation about things Americans generally agree on. We're all affected by a justice system that's unfair. But, you know, isn't this the kind of thing that just keeps people distracted away from real solutions? You have to admit that.
Well, Tammy, unfortunately, these are the things in America that get attention. There's been more attention on this story than there was with the 17 pastors meeting with President Trump last week to push prison reform.
Well, you can talk to the mainstream media about that. That's one of the issues.
Well,
what is the president? How is the media covering the president's work? And when it's with the communities that the Democrats normally lay claim to, it doesn't get coverage. They don't want to talk about the president having success. Instead, and this is what you should be upset about, the media promoting things that make activist communities look bad, and then they play into it. I mean, isn't that something you should be speaking out against?
Look, if you look at the 1960s, if you look at the press clippings from them, they demonized the Freedom Riders. They demonized Dr. King as an outside agitator going into communities. There's never an appropriate or acceptable way. There's never an acceptable way to protest until something is done. I think congressional and presidential leadership on this issue will be what stops people from protesting.
We both know the best protester in American history is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we know the coverage of that, and it was powerful, and it made the difference. So when media wants to cover something properly, they will. In this case, I think we're all being taken for a ride. But I love your position regarding the president and really having an influence on policy. Robert, terrific seeing you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.